Unpopular opinions about rape. If you rape or sexually abuse children, you should get your genitals removed. And all of the fixings of a child molester: jail time, registry, staying away where kids are, schools, parks. I acknowledge that removing genitals of a true rapist do not make much of a difference. The goal of this is justice, rather than rehabilitation. Edit: I am not sure why you guys are commenting about how pedophiles sometimes don't act on their feelings. I thought I was clear: if you rape or sexually assault kids. Not all people that rape kids are pedos too. Also, women who sexually abuse kids should have their clit and ovaries removed. Every person that's been falsely accused of rape should sue their accuser every time. Doesn't matter if no one believes the accusations. There should be a separate court system to fully penalize people who do this and compensate people who get accused of a crime like this that they didn't do. If you are raped, you have a duty to report it in a timely manner. Not 30 years after the fact. No one deserves to get raped. And the people who do the rape deserve long prison sentences or death. I do believe that rapes need to be reported to police as soon as the victim can do so safely. It's a citizen's duty to report a crime. It is the only way the justice system can work properly. If all these incidents we hear about in the news were reported back when they occurred, I think we would see a lot better punishment of the offenders. If your house gets broken into, you report it. If you witness a murder or someone tries to kill you, you would report it. How would it look if I came to the police 30 years later and say John Doe broke into my house and stole $1,000 back in 1990? He should be arrested. 6'9" is a child abuser and convicted attempted murderer who has been found guilty of using a child in a sexual performance. I think this is one instance where it shouldn't be controversial to demand that he is cancelled. In 2015, 6'9" pled guilty to a felony count of use of a child in a sexual performance and received a 4-year probation period and a 1,000-hour community service order. In 2018, he was arrested on racketeering, weapons, and drugs charges. He pled guilty to 9 charges including conspiracy to commit murder sourced. Yet somehow all his videos get hundreds of millions of views. He is the Roman Polanski of hip-hop. There are tons of hop artists who are better than him, both musically and as people. He is the very definition of someone who should not be celebrated. A disgusting, child-abusing sicko. If stealthing, non-consensual removal of a condom is rape, so should lying about being on birth control. Stealthing was rather prominent in the news not too long ago. Over here in the UK, our laws cause this to be classified as rape. If someone female lies about using birth control, they should face prosecution. Furthermore, any child should not be the financial responsibility of the father. Attempted rape and murder charges should get the same sentence length as committed rape or murder charges. If someone tries to murder/rape someone and they are stopped, that person still had full intent to commit the act. Therefore, in my opinion, making it just as bad from a justice or karma standpoint. Jordan Peterson is so popular because he is the only person telling young men that they have value. First off, I'd like to make it clear that this isn't about whether JP is right or wrong. It's simply about his popularity with young boys. Our current femme-centric society is so incredibly anti-male that many of our boys are going their entire young lives without a single person telling them that they are a good person and that they have value and that they can do hard things. Our girls are constantly surrounded by positive encouragement and you can do anything. And you're perfect the way you are. And such, which, I think is wonderful. I am in no way diminishing those positive messages for girls. Boys, however, are told that men are the cause of all the problems of society, that they need to be taught how to not rape, that they have privilege, that they should make way for women in college, that women deserve jobs more than them, etc. Basically constantly told that they are a problem and if only they could be as good as women, all the world's problems would be solved. Jordan Peterson is really the only voice out there telling young boys, hey, you matter. You're a good person and you can do hard things. Why don't you start by cleaning your room? The fact that he is so popular is testament that our boys are starved for anyone to tell them they are good. Saying teach boys not to rape is just as bad as teach blacks not to steal, or teach Muslims not to bomb. I don't understand why people think it is appropriate to aim anti-rape media and slogans at boys or men. Especially at university campuses and colleges where it is very common to separate the boys and the girls at the start of the year for workshops against sexual assault. Imagine if they separated the whites and the blacks and taught the whites how to avoid being robbed and taught the blacks the definition of theft. Or if they gave all the non-Muslims a bomb whistle to blow when they think they are about to be bombed. None of this is considered okay, but still we see rape as a women's issue. Rape is a societal issue regardless of who the direct victims are. Nobody wants rape, and yet we treat men like they are rapists by default unless taught otherwise. Admitting you're not educated enough to make an opinion on something is something I wish more people would do. Especially with recent events. I have been flat out accused of being racist for not showing my undying support towards BLM. I was nowhere near in the know enough to be able to make the decision to support BLM at the time. And after doing my research, I have decided that I agree and support most of what they are doing. People really need to be able to admit when they don't know about an issue. Too many people are pressured into picking a side when they really have no idea what's going on. So I challenge you this. Instead of supporting what the internet, or your friends or your coworkers tell you to, do your research, and decide based on your moral judgment system which side you support. Or if you support bits of both sides, or neither. Not all Catholic believers are monsters who support rape. Okay, so first off, please go easy on my cake day, but I feel like this is something that needs to be said. I am a Catholic Redditor, which almost seems like an oxymoron these days based on the fact that whenever I talk about my faith on Reddit I get absolutely destroyed for it. With people claiming I'm as bad as the abusive priests themselves. First of all, would like to say that as a Catholic, it is my belief that it is the best religious belief to get me closest to God. So not supporting the religion isn't an option for me because I believe it to be the truest form we know of. Mind you, if you believe otherwise, that's fine. This is just my belief system. Shaun King isn't a person to listen to. Shaun King is a complete clown. A while ago he said a Texas state trooper raped a woman in a traffic stop. Body cam comes out and boom. The officer was just talking properly and kindly during the traffic stop. He gave out the last name of the officer, which put two troopers in the middle of constant doing and threats aimed at them and their families. There is other instances as well. Second, I'm often treated by other Redditors as if I know someone who was abused. And that I'm okay with it somehow. I'd like to make it clear that the overwhelming majority of Catholics deem the abuse scandals to be unacceptable. However, most of us don't know directly of any abuses that haven't been reported already, so there really isn't anything more we can do besides put faith in our beliefs and that the investigations are true and garner justice as necessary. We are in the same boat as most. We see the abuse scandals and are disgusted, leading some to be leaving the church as we speak. However, we also believe in the goodness that will inevitably rise from the church and God. At the end of the day, I try to remember that above all, love is what's most important, so I try not to retaliate when terrible comments are flung at me. But it's really hard. So please try to consider the fact that not every single one of the millions of Catholics in the world are part of some soulless scheme for priests to get away with rape, and that some of us, if not most of us, just want to follow our beliefs. As a female, I shouldn't support other women purely because they're women. God, every time I go on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, all I see is stuff like real women support each other or men suck. Women rock, girls support girls. How am I supposed to stand behind that sort of thing when I've only ever been torn down by other women? Support good people because they're good, not because they're a certain gender. No, that woman didn't have sex with a child. She raped them. Say it with me now. She raped them. Doesn't matter if the victim was a boy or a girl. It doesn't matter if it was a student, a child she babysat, her own children, or anyone else. If they're not adults, and she is an adult, it is rape. Not improper sexual conduct. Not an inappropriate relationship. Not having sex. This apparently needs to be said, even in 2020. Children can't consent. The Triple C law. People would take men's issues a lot more seriously if they weren't almost always brought up as a counterpoint in an argument against women's issues. For instance, when a high-profile case happens where a woman is raped, people will bring up that men are raped, too. It's hard to plead your case when you're only pleading it to minimize someone else's. Men's struggles and women's struggles do not invalidate each other. I constantly hear women laughing at men who are struggling with things and talking about unfairness in the justice system, etc., comparing it to women's lack of rights in the Middle East and saying men have it too good. Women's struggles are out in the open and everyone knows about them, while men's struggles are hidden and swept under the carpet because sadly, nobody cares. Lots of men also seem to think women's struggles are nothing compared to men's. They like to pretend women have it all in society and should stop whining. Just because a man is struggling, it doesn't make women's struggle less important, vice versa. It is never acceptable, under any circumstances, for a prisoner to be raped while in state custody. We often joke about it. Haha, that felon's going to get fucked in the ass. Or make jokes about prison showers. I think we as a society have become desensitized to these acts, and in reality, they are. Sexual assaults are terrible, but people who get their ass lightly slapped by a stranger aren't survivors and should grow a pair. Obviously, if you have been raped or sexually attacked or even just attacked physically, that's absolutely terrible. But in more minor offenses, people should be expected to stand up for themselves or at least head for safety. For example, if you're on a bus and some creepy dude sits next to you and puts his hand on your knee. Yes, he is an a-hole, but we as humans are so vulnerable to the world's ills, disease, starvation, natural disasters, etc., that if you can't at least get up and move or say something, maybe you should seek help instead of living a life where these small dangers can completely shatter your existence. Edit. Every sexual assault is terrible and shouldn't be downplayed, obviously. But we should encourage people to have a stronger foundation when faced with bad weather. That is my entire point. I'm not trying to excuse assault. Women are just as bad as men. Society just ignores that. In my experience, women are just as entitled, aggressive, predatory, abusive, toxic and more. The proportion of female rapists and abusers are way higher than people care to admit. When it is brought up, they fire back with the "not all women," but are perfectly happy to generalize men. I'm getting tired of being told to stop doing things I have never done. People who are accused of rape should be believed just as much as the people who accuse them. In this country, we are supposed to live under the theory innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately for people accused of rape, this is almost never the case. Plenty of people each year are accused of rape, and then acquitted. Yes, not all of these people are actually innocent. And some do get away with it because of the system, but not all. Many people's lives can be ruined by a false rape accusation even after being fully exonerated. I understand that we need to give our full support to people who claim they have been raped, as almost all of them are telling the truth. But supporting the victim, and presuming the innocence of the person who is accused, should not be mutually exclusive. I despise rape, and I believe that people who commit this crime are among the worst people in society. But that does not mean we should treat these criminals any differently than others. It is a disrespect to our already broken justice system to do so. Telling men to not be afraid of a false rape accusation because it's statistically unlikely doesn't help anything. Because that's not why we are really afraid. Anyone who pays attention to the news at all should remember the clusterfuck that was the Kavanaugh hearings. Resulting from that mess was the brief conversation that happened around the internets, on the opinion pages of news sites, and probably a good amount of interpersonal conversations as well. The conversation went as such: if you're afraid of a false rape accusation landing on you, you're wrong to do so because it's so rare. And you're a shitty person to do so because that means you don't care about women. Furthermore, even men who are falsely accused of rape rarely see jail time anyways. Yeah. No shit. The reason being is that the biggest way to determine if an accusation is false is if there is undeniable evidence despite the accuser stating otherwise. Which is rare, or the accuser confesses that the accusation was false. Which is usually the case. So, of course the legal system will not give charges based on a certifiable false statement. What isn't outlined about rape accusations is the majority of them are closed because there is no evidence to support either scenario. The implication in providing that their really rare statistic was it implied the remaining allegations were true. In effect, it was a lie by omission. And the above really isn't my point anyways. Here's the main point: in a false accusation, the false accuser is rarely punished. There are very little, if any, repercussions to a false female rape accuser if she's found to be lying. So, why should a woman be scared to make a false allegation if his life is going to be fucked up from it and hers isn't? Even if she's caught in the lie. Where's the deterrent there? Another question that I have never once seen given a good answer: how does a man prove verbal, unrecorded consent to sex? This is how most consent occurs anyways. Other than his word, what defense does he have to a woman stating that the sex turned into rape? Throw in radical feminism's insistence that consent can be revoked at any time, even after sex, then what men are looking at is a fucking legal minefield that has this as a sign at the front of it: intimacy with a woman. We have no defense, she gets no consequences. And people are baffled as to why men, especially young men, are terrified of this. Lastly, I want to be wrong. Here's what you can do if I am: treat me as someone who has been lied to, and prove why that's the case, without being a piece of shit about it. Try and see if you can avoid calling me an incel, as that is the current insult in this regard I've found. I'm not saying this to guard against my delicate sensibilities, but rather know that I am nowhere close to being alone here. Relentless condescension, name-calling, and accusations are only going to do one thing with the growing number of men who are convinced they're right: it'll reinforce their position, and you won't even see them in the comments. You won't even see them outside the walls of a public conversation, or a heated exchange on Facebook. Talk to them, not me. In this case here on Reddit at least. So, if I am wrong, convince the people not leaving comments, the ones listening, that I am. And see if you can do it in a way that doesn't make you look like part of another growing demographic. Someone who doesn't even give a shit and could care less about men's concerns and fears.
This is RedditJoe channel, and don't forget to hit subscribe down below for more upcoming videos.